It's all about the heist this week in the region, and Carib Money Report has got you covered. I am Kimberly Ramkalawan. A major AI deep heist takes down Cibc Trinidad. To get an understanding of its probable cause, we speak to digital anthropologist Darren Dure. And high-level visits. The region welcomed leaders from India and Nigeria, all in 1 week. And our This Week in History segment looks at how Suriname adopted the CET upon its ascension to CARICOM membership. All this coming up in less than a minute. In what is being described as the biggest AI hit to happen in our shores in recent times, investigations are ongoing into what led to a $14 million theft from Cibc. We begin this week's In the News segment with Cibc Trinidad getting scammed of close to $14 million. The incident is said to have transpired in the month of June when one of its managing directors reported that authorization was given to him by the CEO to transfer over $14 million from the bank's suspense processing account to other external accounts. Police investigations reveal that money transferred were discovered as far as Hong Kong, Singapore, and Bulgaria. According to reports, the request to conduct such transactions came via the bank's CEO via WhatsApp and a string of emails with prompts to conduct such transactions. However, further inquiries after the transaction was completed later revealed that the CEO was unaware of the transaction. Phishing and AI are said to have probably been used in the orchestrated plot. With regards to whether any action was taken against staff members and bank officials, no statement has been released on the matter officially. However, reports suggest that some monies have been. Carbon Cement Company Limited, a TCL subsidiary, commissioned a $42 million debottleneck project at its Rockport facility in East Kingston. In launching the facility, its regional president for South and Central America and the Caribbean, Alejandro Ramirez, described it as the company's expansion toward becoming the premier supplier of cement in the region.
In the last 5 years, we have invested in this operation close to $100 million. The last 5 years, close to $100 million, US dollars. So let's give some perspective of that. $100 million can allow us to build 3 cement mills. With that money, we could build 3 cement mills. So we have been expanding, we have been investing on having more environmental friendly operations, and we will continue doing that. And we are expanding not just to serve the local market, but also to export. We want to become an export powerhouse in the region.
The investment comes at a time when the Jamaican government has been involved in an expanded housing project. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness shared the linkages of construction with industrialization and creation of economic opportunities.
The prospects of the cement company and other industrial activities is not only bolstered by the government's good fiscal management of the economy, which gives certainty for taxes and certainty for other policy prescriptions, but we are creating markets for the products. So the economic outlook for the cement company and other industrial endeavors looks promising.
The island with Cemex, noting that it represents over $100 million spent so far on its expansion in Jamaica. The Caribbean welcomed 2 international leaders this week, with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi stopping off in Trinidad and Tobago before heading off to Argentina. There he encouraged for deepening of ties as a means of forming bridges across India to Latin America and the Caribbean.
I'm sure that our ties will help us forge a stronger connection with the wider region, building on the momentum of the second India-CARICOM summit We are eager to collaborate on initiatives that enhance trade and investment, build infrastructure and mobility, implement community development projects, and above all, support capacity building, training, and skill development on a large scale.
His visit saw some 15 agreements signed for shared interest, including 5 QIPs. Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Visesa shared that the bilateral treaty will be the first of its kind in the region, with India promoting exports to the world's largest populous nation.
Some of us may know that bilateral trade between Trinidad and Tobago and India reached a record TT $1.2 billion, US $368.96 million in the last fiscal year. Trinidad and Tobago exports to India energy products include ammonia, LNG, methanol, whilst on the other hand we import from India pharmaceuticals, textiles, and industrial goods. As we look ahead from today, as we move ahead, we aim to expand our exports, Honorable Prime Minister, to tap into India's 1.4 billion population. And that is a 1.4 billion consumers. We are also pursuing a partial scope trade agreement. The first it would be from a CARICOM country, and we are laying the foundation for a new bilateral investment treaty.
Pan-Africanism is said to have also deepened this week with the visit of Nigeria's president to St. Lucia, where he met and formalized agreements with the OECS. Speaking on the discussions had, Prime Minister Philip J. Pear shared that a committee had been set up to oversee the agreements.
A joint committee which will comprise members of the Nigerian government and members of the OECS to deal with some pressing issues: education, air travel, trade, and tourism. These 4 issues will be the topics that the joint committee, comprising of members of the Nigerian government and members of the St. Lucian government.
While talks were shared on air transport linkages between both regions, the Nigerian president shared the opening up of its market to the OECS, as well as partnerships in other areas.
As the largest market in Africa, presents significant opportunity for the OECS, both as a source of essential input and as a growing export destination. Together, we can leverage our respective strengths to attract investments, create jobs, and foster joint ventures that benefit both our peoples.
The visit comes ahead of the Afri-Exim Bank's Afri-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum to be held later this month in Grenada. The ECCB is reporting a record high net profit of $126.2 EC million. In its annual report published this week, Governor Timothy Antoine shared that foreign reserves stood at $5.5 EC billion, with 97% backing of the EC dollar, significantly exceeding the 60% statutory requirement. He added that the EC dollar remained strong and stable at the rate of $1 to 2.7 EC dollars, as it has been since July 1976. The bank estimates that the ECCU economy expanded by 3.7% in 2024, growth having been fueled by a strong performance in tourism and construction activity. He shared that the ECCU countries made some progress towards debt sustainability, with the average debt to GDP ratio in the ECCU falling from 77% to 76%. In addition, the inflation rate slowed in all countries, but price levels remain high. The governor also shared plans during the financial year for the Big Push, a set goal to double the size of the ECCU economy over the next decade. However, with recent global developments, he cautioned the region as it will need to relook strategic strategic trade partners, as it will need to relook strategic trade partners and supply chains, accelerate reforms to build resilience, and strengthen regional food and energy security. During the 2025-2026 financial year, the ECCB will craft its 2026-2031 strategic plan, which will include financial regulation, supervisory frameworks, and financial stability. To break down the CIBC scam, we speak to a digital anthropologist. Coming up after these messages.
We want you to advertise with us. Join us as the premier business magazine and news outlet covering the Caribbean. Contact us today at 868-783-5094.
Well, you would have just heard about the CIBC scam. To break down some possible scenarios and how we can equip ourselves against such crimes, we now welcome Mr. Darren Dure, a digital anthropologist from the CyberSafe TT Foundation via Zoom. So, welcome to Carib Money Report, Mr. Dure. How are you?
I am fine, and nice to be a part of your wonderful podcast, Caribbean Money Report.
Thanks for being with us. By now, we would have heard the news that transpired at CIBC with close to $10 million being stolen and transferred to locations around the world. What would have been the possible scenario that would have allowed such an instance to happen? I mean, it was said that it was AI and a phishing scam that played a pivotal role in conducting this operation. And monies were found around the world, like Hong Kong and Singapore. Just give us an idea of how something like this would have happened and how phishing scams work in a situation like this.
Sure thing. I think it's clear to state that this was a very sophisticated scam that made use of technologies such as phishing and AI. So it's not your regular phishing scam via email that you may have only clicked on a link. I think that there may have been a lot more technology involved. It could have been a long game that was being played. For example, the director's laptop or desktop could have been compromised for a while. We've known about situations where someone's email has been compromised and the hacker or scammer is literally just sitting in and reading emails upwards of months, learning patterns and waiting for the right moment. And that will probably also give them the opportunity to deploy malware on your machine, and probably now augment all of that with the power of AI. So we could play through a scenario where in the simplest sense of the word, someone may have clicked on a link, and that could have opened the door. And why would have that happened? It could very well be maybe the computers were not up to the appropriate patch levels and so on. A lot of it points back down to the user being at fault, and unfortunately, I think I have to agree with that. CIBC quite well may have had hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars worth of infrastructure and software and equipment to protect them from scenarios like this from a cybersecurity perspective. But it's often said that people are the weakest link in your cybersecurity arsenal. So we could definitely confirm that that link was broken. It could be a click on an email. And a lot of these things have become so almost very realistic. I mean, we've seen the videos that AI has been able to produce, and it's almost impossible for us to ascertain, what's real and what's not. And those are on the comical side and the more lighter side of technology. But, these criminals have been able to use that same technology to create emails that are very, very believable. And then even so, you could probably receive a voice call from someone at a spoofed number that looks like it's someone that and it sounds exactly like him. I actually did one recently, and I'm going to launch a deep fake, article. And I used a very popular person in Trinidad and Tobago with their permission, and it literally cost me nothing. I didn't have to pay to actually get this done, and the video was extremely realistic. So with the democratization of these type of tools, and the freeness of it, that's at the free level. You could just imagine what the paid versions and subscriptions are. So I think we have a lot of tools that can be used for good, but of course, they are also being used for bad.
I mean, it seems quite in depth. How long something like this could have happened? I'm hearing that this could have been done even simply as overnight.
Oh yeah, definitely. If the need is, you could compromise the machine in the morning, and by lunchtime money's in a bank account somewhere. But it all depends on who the victim is. Let's assume that maybe CIBC would have had a lot of different protocols in place, so it might not have been as easy. Not saying that it wasn't, right? So yeah, you can literally be compromised almost immediately, or as I indicated, it depends on what you want to do. You wait on the long game. Not every day a $14 million transaction might take place. So a hacker might probably look in on and wait for the right moment, for the right amount of monies that might satisfy their need. And then he said, okay, right, today is the day.
Right. We're talking about data protection software here for clients like this. This is a major business. It's an international uh, investment firm. Uh, what does it say about the protection software that they would have employed, and what is needed now going forward? What do they need to do to ensure that their clients are safe? I'm not sure what's going to happen on the financial side with their clients, but clients would obviously need to know that they are a safe institution to continue business with them. What would they need to do to protect or get back their reputation, say to
Yeah,
say?
of course. I mean, we're talking about reputational risk, and everyone who has an account, locally, regionally, and or internationally, will be questioning, my investment or my savings with this institution and other institutions as well. You might be now questioning your current financial institution to find out whether they have, the proper protocols in place. Now, you ask the question in terms of, whether or not they have, appropriate data protection and or cybersecurity protocols. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt here without having the actual, infrastructure development and technology stack, ready to tell you what it is. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that, yeah, you probably did have, the best of the best. Consider this, we all have houses. Let's just say, we were living in Trinidad and Tobago, we have houses. And unfortunately, we were living in a particular state where we need to have, burglar-proof and security cameras. And all of those are things that we use to keep us safe. Now, you wouldn't leave your home to go to work with no one there and the front door open and the security cameras turned off. That would be your personal fault, right? A human error. So the institution, just as well as your home, you could invest in, the best security mechanisms. But if you forget to close your door, or in the equivalent, forget to update a server, right? It could then, open a door, as we like to say in the cyber world, and allow the hackers in. So similarly, that could have been a reason why. Now, in terms of mitigating on this, I think awareness is a part of the cybersecurity strategy that is often given, least preference or even none at all. And by awareness, I mean educating the users in your organization and continuous educating in terms of what you should and should not do. Now, let's take, for example, the multi-billion-dollar industries, that of oil and gas in the Middle East. There are many of those companies who would send intentional phishing emails to their clients. Now, this is coupled with some sort of training and strategy on a regular basis, but they would send intentional phishing emails to their clients, their workers, or not their clients. And if you click on that, you have to go over and do the training. And I'm understanding if you hold a certain position and you clicked on those links at least 2 or 3 times, you might actually be out of a job. It is that serious. And then when we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry, $14 million might be pittance. That might be a day's work, but they can now, lose a lot more, right? So it's very important for different levels. So you have your C-suite, and then you have your lower levels of employee undergoing different types of training. We could probably classify the phishing scam that happened to CIBC as a whaling activity, where the big boss involved is the target, and different strategies are actually employed. So awareness, if I had to do an immediate check, I think awareness would probably be high on the agenda in terms of educating the employees within the system. And you do different strategies for the C-suite and then for the other levels of employees to let them know what they should and should not be doing. Simple things, and I mentioned clicking links and so on, but sometimes we may carry our work home, take our laptops at home as well. Kids might end up using it. That's another, issue that you have to deal with as well. Mobile devices, which now also contain important work-related information, might be shared. with unauthorized individuals, and that could just be a family member as well. Those little activities now can, result in a whole host of very, very unforeseen circumstances that can lead to compromises and breaches. So if I had to give one solution, it would really be along the lines of awareness. For companies of varying levels to report breaches. The thing is, if you don't know that these things are taking place regularly, you may not necessarily see the need to have a sort of priority approach to dealing with it, right? We always have that thinking, it's not going to happen to us, right? It's not going to happen to my company. But it generally does happen to any and anyone. But if you don't have the data, then it might not prompt us to move as swiftly as we want. So from a legislative perspective, definitely reporting these data breaches is key. Now, of course, that means if you report a breach, and in the case of a financial institution, that organization may be held culpable in terms of, remunerating the victims who would be their customers, right? So it's a double-edged sword. But the UK has, very successfully deployed those acts, particularly under the GDPR sort of framework, right? Now, in terms of data protection, again, drawing reference from, the United Kingdom, how we deal with the data that comes to us and how we store it and how we share it and so on is something that I think all organizations across the Caribbean need to take a second look at. So let me ask you a question. You may have dealt with an insurance agent, for example, or even a banker, and you might have casually shared your PII, whether it is your ID card, maybe a scan of a utility bill, with them via WhatsApp, because we needed to actually get that transaction going quickly. Now, at the end of that transaction, do you think that they have deleted that information from their devices? Maybe not. And you probably still have that picture of it on your device as well. Now, what if that device is compromised? Then now you're leading to an easy way of identity theft. Now, that's an activity that happens so often here in Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm sure across the Caribbean. So we are very laissez-faire as it pertains to our own data, much less having companies put things into place. So I know Jamaica is very advanced with their Data Protection Act. So other Caribbean countries could, look at that and follow suit. Trinidad and Tobago, we would have enacted just pieces of our act, but we are getting there. But we can't wait much longer. Similarly, you have the cybercrime bill, which really and truly, from a Trinidad and Tobago's perspective, needs to, work out all of the kinks and become law. So I'm saying all of these pieces of legislation because that's one of the driving factors that get companies to fall in line, follow standards, and become, regulated as it pertains to the topic at hand, right? Cybersecurity. From you at your home perspective, you always have to be quite diligent in terms of what you do, in terms of the kind of files you download, the sites you go to, the links that you click. With AI, it's really unfortunate, but it's going to make being safe on the internet much more challenging. I think we just have to be almost paranoid, for want of a better word, in terms of how we interact. If something is too good to be true, chances are it is, right? Make sure that, you always pay attention to your passwords, don't share passwords, keep that password policy strong, set up multi-factor authentication. I mean, we could go on for about an hour with respect to these strategies, and those would have been repeated multiple times in different fora.
The thing is, it's all part of the time and age that we're living in, and it's a matter of how we can equip ourselves to protect ourselves as well. But it seems to be rapidly moving, that it's always changing, and it's how do we keep up with it on a daily basis. It seems as though AI is something that is always evolving.
Even before the age of AI, and that's just maybe a couple of years ago when it really became quite rampant. Before that, you would have so many scams that were sharing on the WhatsApp platform, and that became, a breeding ground for so many different scams. So it's not just about the financial scams, but it's a much wider and bigger problem. And sometimes that's where cybersecurity comes in to help in terms of improving that awareness and letting people know what they should and shouldn't do on the internet.
So I want to thank you very much for giving us some insight into this situation and for joining us here on Carib Money Report. And thanks to Mr. Dure for that insight into AI and phishing scams. Things to look out for in this ever-changing landscape. We take a break now. When we return, it's your Market Trends Report.
We want you to advertise with us. Join us as the premier business magazine and news outlet covering the Caribbean. Contact us today at 868-783-5094.
Welcome back. It's now time for your Market Trends Report. We start off with the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, which continues to see favorable increases in new trades put through for this week. Still on the radar is Agostini and Prestige Holdings, holding firm in the market amidst the takeover looming. And for those concerned at Cibc, they have held steady with an insignificant change in price, but we'll take a recheck with them next week to see if there are any ripple effects. Market volume steadily climbed for Jamaica this week, Massey holding firm in the midst of the Phase 2 review by Jamaica's FTC. And Caribbean Cement continues to see advances amidst its new investment project of $42 million. Meanwhile, Barbados's regular market soared exponentially this week in comparison to the past few weeks. Real estate giant FLE Caribbean captured almost 50% of the market, while major conglomerate Goddard Enterprises gained 42% of shares traded. The Eastern Caribbean market saw a downward trend this week as new trade volumes fell by 4 times the amount compared to last week. And well, that's how we check in with the markets regionally this week. Stay with us. We go down memory lane in a few.
We want you to advertise with us. Join us as the premier business magazine and news outlet covering the Caribbean. Contact us today at 868-783-5094.
Welcome back. In 1995, Suriname ascended to the 14th member of CARICOM, while it also adopted the Common External Tariff. On July 4, 1995, Suriname became the 14th member of CARICOM, adopting the Common External Tariff (CET), also as part of their economic integration efforts, aiming to create a regional market with free flow of goods. Their membership would only come after their application, some 20 years after being an observer of CARIFTA. In 1994, Suriname applied for full membership of the Community and Common Market, with the application being welcomed by the heads of government at the 15th meeting of the conference. It was agreed to establish a review process, including a small technical group to develop with the government of Suriname under the coordination of the Bureau of the Conference. Details with respect to both the application for membership of the Community and the transitional arrangements with respect to membership of the Common Market. This meant that to ensure its benefiting from the CET upon its membership in CARICOM, significant changes had to be done to Suriname's external trade policy, where it relinquished itself from the Brussels Tariff Nomenclature (BTN) agreement, a multiple tariff regime ranging from 0 to 100%. Preparations for CARICOM membership required that this system be replaced in 1994 with a harmonized system HS, used as a basis for determining duty-free entry of goods of CARICOM origin and for applying the Common External Tariff. Upon its membership, entry into the free trade area was immediate, with no major transition phase contemplated in the Ascension Agreement. Then President of the Republic of Suriname, Ronaldo Venetian, in his maiden address to the conference noted that with the ascension of Suriname to the Caribbean Community and the Caribbean Common Market, a new and important chapter has been added to the process of integration in our region. He added that in his country's search for partners, it had opted on the basis of historical, geographical, socio-economic and cultural considerations for countries and peoples which would offer Suriname a natural environment in the immediate vicinity. We now have found this in CARICOM. Under the CET, Suriname grants duty-free access to all imports from CARICOM, provided that they meet the criteria for CARICOM origin. And stay with us as we bring you coverage and recap of this year's CARICOM meeting ongoing in Jamaica this year. We pause for a few messages. We'll be right back.
We want you to advertise with us. Join us as the premier business magazine and news outlet covering the Caribbean. Contact us today at 868-783-5094.
Well, that's how we wrap up another week here at Carib Money Report. Thank you for tuning in. Until our next show, I am Kimberly Ram Calawan.